What is going on at Blizzard? I'll tell you what's going on. Nothing. Nothing's fucking going on. They don't know what they're doing. I don't think that they know what to do after Season of Discovery. That's what I think.
So, Classic Plus has been something really in discussion since Classic came out in 2019.
That's what people wanted, yeah.
World of Warcraft is an MMORPG after all. It's built in a way where it runs its course and under usual circumstances has to move into expansions and beyond. And for ourselves, we've done Vanilla multiple times, we've done TBC, about to be multiple times, we've done Wrath, we did Cataclysm, and now somewhat unbelievably we're in Mists of Pandaria with Warlords of Draenor of all things looming ominously beyond that. There have been plenty alternative versions of Classic 2 from Season of Mastery and Discovery, Hardcore, and of course Anniversary more recently. That is a whole lot of Classic WoW over the past 6 years and since it first re-released.
This is one of the reasons that kind of keeps me away from playing Classic WoW in like a classic, like Season of Discovery, theoretically, is that I know that the servers and everything is just going to go poof one day. And because of that, it makes me less interested and less motivated to keep playing because I feel like there's a transience to the game. And like resets and things like that remind me of live service games. I'm getting live service PTSD.
But at the same time, we don't have anything permanent that players are able to go back to and call a home when they want. Today I want to talk about the state of Classic Plus at the moment, and to ask for one thing in particular. Whilst I'm well aware Classic Plus may be very far off into the future still, is there any information that Blizzard feel they can give us at this point in time to give us some kind of roadmap or teaser about their plans for this project in the future? Because at the moment we're reaching really a culmination of events in the World of Warcraft Classic space, which make the current silence on Classic Plus and the future of this project quite deafening. Let's talk about what's been going on recently and why it seems now that so many people are getting a bit impatient in the ever-growing Classic Plus waiting room. Let's start with a private server situation.
I mean, there's a chance that because original WoW came out in November, maybe for the anniversary they're going to have news about like a new server or like what they're going to do. But in general, like what's happened is that you've had Project Epoch, Ascension server, like there's been a lot of other servers, and I don't think any of these servers, Turtle, WoW, I don't think any of them are really doing what I think that Blizzard should do with Classic Plus. But I think that at least they're trying. I don't support private servers, but I understand why people do them.
And I'm sure you've seen content about that already. Some servers had cease and desist letters issued, some of them closed because of that. And for Turtle WoW specifically, things even go beyond that, with Blizzard pursuing legal action against them. I'd always assumed in part that Blizzard didn't go after private servers more regularly because basically this happens. And what I mean by this is a massive amount of news coverage and free advertisement for said server, whilst also making Blizzard look like the bad guy in this scenario. And I want to talk about the intention behind Blizzard going after these servers now, instead of focusing on the legal side of things here. For the legal side, honestly, we'll see what ends up happening, but you may be surprised to learn I am in fact not an expert on international copyright law. Private servers were one of the biggest reasons that Classic happened in the first place. There is no denying it. It was a proof of concept beyond reasonable doubt that there was a tremendous amount of people that were super invested in the idea of going back to how World of Warcraft started on day one.
See, like, nowadays, like, we don't have this anymore. Like, this is a statue. It's in the Burning Steppes. And this is a statue of Anduin Lothar. And the sword is faced at Blackrock Mountain because he was a, obviously a warrior of the Alliance. And he fought against the orcs, trying to repel them after they came in through the Dark Portal. Nowadays, the game is about, I don't know, like being a furry, being friends with people, not knowing if like your mom likes you or not, and just in general being a weird bitch. The amount of masculinity that World of Warcraft used to have, like you have to watch the Warlords of Draenor cinematic to really understand how far things have gone. you really cannot even begin to understand what we used to have.
There was, of course, the question asked to Blizzard at that panel pre-Warlords of Draenor in 2013, and there was the infamous reply, too, of "You think you do, but you don't" by J. Allen Brack.
She was right
and
with
Brack
a lot of
also
people.
did the presentation for Classic's official release at BlizzCon 2017 as well. Bit of a twist of fate there. Plenty of vanilla servers have existed over the years, and especially they did back then, but one at that point in time grew far beyond the size of the others, and it was called Nostarius. They posted up some crazy stats upon their closure.
Dude, do you remember, like, let me go all the way back. I'll see if I can pull this up. 9 years ago, I made a video about Nostarius. 9 fucking years ago.
50,000 active accounts, 3.2 million characters created, and a team of 30 people, which they say was just a bit smaller than Blizzard's original team, helping out to form the game. But they only got to the point of sending a cease and desist letter to them, threatening further legal action if they didn't follow those orders, and the Nostarius would end up closing in 2016.
Yeah, they shut them down.
Following its closure, thousands of players were left without a home that they had enjoyed through this private server, and back then that home they wanted was just plain old vanilla World of Warcraft. This was when the demand for Classic began to really ramp up, with a petition started by the Nostarius developers, and said petition being formally presented by an original dev, Mark Kern. As we now know, the petition ended up being successful, with about 280,000 people having signed it.
Wow.
Then, of course, eventually Classic WoW dropped in September of 2019, so quite some time later, really.
Dude, do you remember Mark Kern goes in and he said that he would hand deliver the petition for Classic WoW to, at the time, the president of Blizzard, Mike Morhaime. And Mike Kern goes in with a fucking, not a forklift, like a hand truck with every single fucking name. And he actually hand delivers it to Mike Morhaime.
The reason I'm going over this history lesson is because, as it often does, history is currently repeating itself.
Yes.
The big difference here is for Turtle WoW specifically, they've got to a point where they're being properly sued by Blizzard, not just asked to stop what they're doing via a cease and desist letter, though for all we know, received a cease and desist, ignored it, and well, that's got them to this point where we are now. Blizzard are also seeking to claim the content that's been included in their custom server as well, instead of it being deleted as outlined here. It says requiring defendants to deliver to Blizzard all copies of material that infringe or violate any of the rights described herein, including all versions of Turtle WoW client and any Turtle WoW servers.
Well, maybe this is the solution. So Blizzard is going to have everybody from Turtle WoW just give them all their stuff, and then Blizzard can just come out and call Tortoise WoW. Call it Tortoise WoW, and just release it. Sure. Problem solved. You owe us your homework. Legally.
The point is, it's a similar situation to what we had with Nostarius, where private servers were seeing growth as they were providing an experience that people felt as though Blizzard were not. And the fact that Blizzard are going after private servers that are pushing custom Classic content now, whilst they're apparently developing Classic Plus, really points to the fact that maybe, similar to Nostarius, some of these servers have gotten too large, and Blizzard feel as though they have to address them, otherwise they will be a real competitor to whatever Blizzard is actively working on. Now, we don't know what...
Sure, I mean, of course they're going to shut down a private server. I mean, just, duh, of course. And if it's a small server and nobody plays it, then they're not going to, like, obviously the big ones are going to get shut down more often than the small ones. Oh my god, this is, yeah, of course, obviously. Why doesn't Blizzard just hire the people running the popular private servers? I think what they should do is they should look at a lot of the guys that have played Classic WoW for a really long time, and they should look at some of the devs for these private servers, and they should try to, they also should hire, because like you need a, I think you need a trifecta. You need a trifecta of people that, you need one group of people that just understand Classic WoW, like in and out, without, like, you know, like they know everything. They know how much health every boss has. They know, you know, where every quest is. you know, they live and breathe classic WoW. You need to have those like super fans that you can effectively engage and, you know, kind of judge things based off of, right? You've got to have those guys. Then you also have the guys that are running the private servers now that, you know, they've tried to float different ideas. They can show like what their insight is. And then you also need, of course, the expert developers and the designers that actually work at the company, right? And you need to have all three of these groups get together, and they need to come up with the game. Like, you can't do it with any one of the three. You have to have all three of them. Because the thing is, if you just do it for like super hardcore classic players, then they're only going to want, you know, more and more raids after Naxxramas, which is like, that's nice, but that doesn't really, you know, that's for like 1% of the population, right? You don't want to have it just be the classic, the plus players, because they don't necessarily understand the larger Blizzard player base. And you can't have it just be the designers because they don't understand classic players necessarily. You have to have all of these groups working in concert together in order to make a good product. Like, I think classic WoW has a future that retail WoW doesn't have. I don't think retail WoW has a future, but it doesn't have a future that is growing. It's basically just a managed decline.
On though and talk about something else which has happened in the classic WoW space that's been causing a bit of drama. So not so long ago, China had their 20th anniversary for World of Warcraft.
20th
As part of that, they had a
time.
new type of server announced, Titan Forge servers. These will be a bunch of realms that would rotate their raids between Vanilla, TBC, and Wrath of the Lich King, with Wrath talents, updated itemization, and so on. Where they mentioned that these realms would be their main focus for the next year. Now, I think some people interpreted this as now Blizzard are committing to WoW in China and aren't even doing anything in the West at the moment.
What retard thinks that?
Well, beyond what we already have. But this was a presentation for WoW in China for Chinese audiences. Yes, it was done by representatives from Blizzard in the West, but the context of whom the information was for, I think, is pretty important. China didn't get Season of Discovery, so it does go both ways, with one set of us getting some content whilst the other doesn't. And to be honest, these Titan Forge realms will just be raid logging with slightly different itemization and microtransactions.
That's the main issue that I think World of Warcraft has, is raid logging. That's the thing that... Do you guys remember, like, who played BDO the first month of the game release? Do you remember how fucking cool that was? Whenever you'd log on and everybody would be out there fishing and people would be life skilling, and the game really felt like a modern fantasy world that you were going into. I think that one of the big mistakes that World of Warcraft made over the years, and I think that a lot of games make over the years, is that they double down on their high-frequency content, and they do so at the expense of the feel of the world. And I think if you really go back and you look at a lot of, like, how do you make the greatest MMO? I think one of the best ways to do that is you have to inform yourself of what content are people consuming en masse right now for MMO video games. And so the point that I'm making is that a lot of these old designers understood that these video games, it was 50% game design and 50% psychology. And you can argue about the percentages all you want, but the one thing that's true for sure is that both of these things needed to be considered. And a lot of developers now focus on analytics. They focus on a, philosophy that they have, or, the way a boss works or anything like that. None of these things really matter. None of these things actually make a difference at all. What really matters is if somebody is able to log into the game and feel like they're transformed into a new world, into a different universe, and into a place where they truly can have a adventure inside of. And I think that that's what a lot of the isekai animes really do, is that they give somebody a transcendent adventure that goes beyond what they've been experienced in their real life. Fundamentally, at the beginning of every single one of them, that's usually what happens, right? Somebody dies, they're locked into the story or some other variation of this. if you can't deliver that experience, and that experience is not delivered inside of like Stormwind and Retail WoW, it's not delivered by Stormwind and Retail WoW, where it's effectively a glorified and very fancy with nice graphics waiting room for a menu screen. That's not a video game. Sorry, it is, but it's not an MMO. That's not a fantasy world. That's a menu. And I think that people that are looking for MMOs, and I think that there's a huge amount of people that are looking for MMOs, and another example of this, I think that kids still do want games like this. And one of the ways that I can tell that is the way that kids play Roblox. Kids play Roblox, and they play games that are not necessarily super hard games. They're not playing games that are super, like difficult necessarily. Maybe they do sometimes, but not all the time. But what I think a lot of kids seem to be getting out of Roblox is the interaction and the community that's created by the game. So in a way, Roblox has created a lot of that MMO feel outside of an MMO. And what's happening with World of Warcraft and what's happened with a lot of MMOs is that they focused on boss fights. They focused on challenges. They focused on FOMO. They focused on PvP. But they haven't focused on the prime user experience and the way that a person feels playing the game. And I think that that's something that Classic WoW really understood. And I think that's why it's still successful 20 years later. And I think that the best video games encapsulate that throughout history. Dark Souls 1, Elden Ring. These are games that will be transcendent video games that people will be playing in 50 years.
Ian even mentions during the presentation that purchases will carry forwards to other versions of World of Warcraft. Blizzard would never mention that kind of thing for Western players.
I mean, I think that this is a fair concern that people have, that they're worried that they're focusing more on China than the United States because China is more accepting of microtransactions. Yeah, sure, probably. But like, I don't think it's really like they don't care about the US at all.
Don't get me wrong, I can understand why people will look forwards to this, but I'm really looking for that World of Warcraft again, not just rotating between the relevant instance of the week with very little to care about in between.
Very few, and this is the other problem, and remember what I said, how you needed the trifecta of designers? The problem is that a lot of very, very hardcore players want to have effectively a menu simulator. And I think that that's the problem with Retail WoW. Is that Retail WoW has spent a lot of time listening to the most hardcore players inside of their community. They've listened to the dumbest and also the best players. And Retail WoW has created a player base that appeals to about 30% of the population. The top 15% and the bottom 15%. But where's the middle 70% to go? Nowhere. And I think that's the real group that's being captured by Classic WoW. And making harder raids than Naxxramas, making more difficult solo challenges in Classic WoW, making grinds that take 2 years to do. This is bullshit that's invented by people that want to turn the video game into a job. And that's where you need the insight and intelligence of designers like people like Kevin Jordan, for example, or, somebody like Miyazaki for Elden Ring or Dark Souls that can listen to what these people are saying and then understand it, but not implement it into the game directly. Because I think that's the big problem, is that Retail WoW is effectively, made for the most hardcore audiences.
Blizzard did put out a blue post after this mini backlash as well to the news in China, where they said, "We want to clarify that everything in those comms, particularly comments about our focus, is intended for the China community specifically.
Yes.
What we are working on, be it Classic Anniversary, Burning Crusade Anniversary, Mists of Pandaria, the future of Progression Realms, or anything else we're working on in the Classic space has not changed. And to be clear, our announcements regarding our plans in China do not change that." They also referred back to a blue post that was made some time ago when Blizzard announced that they were basically going to be stopping work on Season of Discovery.
Smart.
They said here, "We have big plans and big ambitions for this type of found photographs content set in the original world of Azeroth. But in order to realize those ambitions, we need to make sure we're spending our time where it will make the most impact on the long-term future of WoW Classic." set ourselves up for success by taking the time we need to get in the proverbial kitchen and cook, iterate on, and shape our ideas and lessons learned from Season of Discovery into something truly exciting.
Well, I think it's smart because, like, really, this is probably what's happened for the player base of Season of Discovery. Let me guess. It's gone like this. And the reason why is because the content for the game is based entirely around the end game. It's not based around, like, it's like these, like, harder modes of the game. It's the like, for example, like giving warriors healing, giving mages healing, stuff like this, making rogues tank. This goes against the fundamental functionality of the game. The reason why Classic WoW was really good is because every class couldn't do everything, and you did get fucked over. And you were a warrior, and you have to eat after every single pull. You're a paladin, you have to drink after every single pull. You are both functioning at 80%. But whenever you team up, now you're at 250 fucking percent. He can keep attacking while you're drinking. You can drink while he's attacking, or I guess it's basically the same thing. And then he can heal you, so he doesn't have to. Sorry, the paladin can heal you, so you don't have to sit down and eat. And like you can take on other risks. You can fight bosses, and the game, yeah, it's like 1 + 1 becomes 5. 1 + 1 becomes 3. And I think that that's really the magic of a lot of Classic WoW. It's the interdependency.
You may also remember at the end of Season of Discovery, they gave all characters a free boost to Mists of Pandaria realms, who had defeated the first boss in the Scarlet Enclave. This meant people could get straight up to 85 in the hope that they would start playing LoC for its duration, and that would be enough to tie people over until there was further announcements on what's happening with Classic Plus. Then again, there are also Anniversary realms that have just gotten Phase 6, which is Nax Rammus, meaning TBC early 2026 right now is looking very likely. Blizzard are also in the spot here where they could re-release TBC Anniversary on January 16th, which would be the same day it came out in 2007. Could definitely see them doing that. I feel as though a pretty sizable number of players, well, aren't. It's all well and good in the interim to pursue other interests, games, or whatever it may be, but I think for MMO players that they like the familiarity of having something to go back to now and again, and right now they're just isn't anything really. It's like we're drifting in an ocean waiting for something to appear on the horizon, but we've just no clue when anything will be happening. I mean, I just want to recap everything that's going on at the moment. It feels as though Nostalrius is happening all over again with the private server scene. Blizzard are actively pursuing legal action against them or cease and desist orders. You've got many Classic WoW streamers who are some of your most invested players with the most invested audiences simply not playing the game and playing other things despite you releasing new games at the moment in the WoW space.
Well, I think that's really, I mean, the fact that so many of these guys have moved over to OSRS, I think it really goes to show who's doing it right.
And we know from Blizzard's records, the release of Classic WoW was one of the biggest successes they have ever had. And I think Classic Plus can be on that level. But at the moment, as it is, we are waiting. We're waiting to see what's been in the works for who knows how long now, and to find out what the next big chapter for Classic WoW will be. As mentioned at the start, we really don't expect any big news for Classic this year with Anniversary and Mists of Pandaria. On top of that, there's no big Blizzard event this year such as BlizzCon to announce things at. But if there's any chance of a teaser, a roadmap, or just really anything to keep Classic Plus interested players in the loop, then I hope that the time for announcing things is sooner rather than later. I'm well aware it's likely to be as far away as BlizzCon 2026 for an official announcement, and I am expecting to be waiting until then. But with everything that's happening in the WoW Classic space at the moment, that waiting room is pretty massive, and it's only going to grow between now and then. But for Blizzard, hopefully the time to share a bit more information about what's going on behind the scenes is preferably sooner rather than later. And that's all I've got for you today, so let me know your thoughts on everything I've gone over in the comments down below. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening in, and I shall see you all in the next one very soon.
To me, it seems to me that the way that the developers make decisions in Classic WoW indicates that they don't really understand why WoW was really popular and what made classic WoW work so well. A lot of the Season of Discovery changes, and whenever I realized that they didn't know what they were doing, is when they got rid of GDKP. That was when I was like, yeah, these guys, they don't really... Like, I mean, I think Agrand and them, I think they're great, but I just don't think that they have the insight that's needed to make something like OSRS. Now, maybe it can be cultivated, maybe through the time and the experience they've had with Season of Discovery. They've learned things, and they're going to be able to do something better. But I think that the way that they handled GDKP ruined the game for casuals, i.e. me. No, it didn't. It didn't. Like, you're just making that up. I'm glad there's still some people talking about this. I mean, I've obviously, played Classic WoW for how many fucking years, right? On and off. And, I'm still very passionate about it, as you guys can see, even though I haven't played in quite a long time. It launders and incentivizes RMT. Okay, so because Blizzard doesn't want to uphold their terms of service, they want to punish the entire player base? No, I don't want to do that. That's stupid. Path of Exile doesn't do that. Path of Exile lets you trade anything that you want. So why can PoE 2 do it, but Blizzard can't do it? Whenever PoE 2 is a free game, well, PoE 1 is a free game. PoE 2 will be a free game. Why are they able to do it, but Blizzard can't do it? Oh, that's right, because they don't care. I don't want to hear that. It's bullshit.